To factor polynomials, we're going to find the greatest common factor. So always keep in your mind, this is always the first step. Find if there is common between the terms, because it's make everything easier for you. Always check this one. So here is a simple example about the greatest common factor. If you have AB plus AC, this is binomial, two terms. What's the common between these two terms? The common is A exists on these two terms. So I'm going to factor the A out. Now, if you took this A is out, the left from this side is just the B. And here's the plus sign. If you factor out the A on the second term, the left is the C. So this is factor out the GCF, and here's the leftover from these two terms. This is really important, is make everything easier for you. Now let's work with numbers. If you have 6x plus 3y. So let's factor the GCF between these two terms. If you look to this one, 6 is 3 times 2. So if you look, the common between these two terms is the 3. Because I'm factoring the 6, 3 times 2, the common is the 3. Which means here is the 3 out. There is no common between the variables because I have x here and y. So I'm going to open parentheses. If you want to make it easier for you, divide the numbers. So if I took the 3 out, the left is 2. On this side, the left is 2. Here is the x plus. If I took the 3 out, the left is 1 and just the y by itself. That's it for this one. Here is the GCF, the common between this term and this one. We took it out, and the left here is going to be 2x plus y. Let's check this example. Find or factor out the common factor. 6x cubed minus 18x. Here's another example. 6x cubed minus 18x. So the common between 6 and 18. 6, I'm going to say 6 times 1. And 18, I can say 6 times 3. So the common between the numbers is number 6. Do I have common between variables? Yes, because here is x cubed and here is x. Always take, if you have common between the variables and you want to find the common, take the exponent, take the variable with the smallest exponent. X cubed, x to the exponent 1, that means the common is just x, the smallest exponent, which is the 1. Now this is the common factor between this term and this one. Next step, if you took the 6 out, the left here is just x, but 3 x's here. I'm going to cancel 1x. The left is 2 x's. So here is the rule. You can divide the numbers. You're going to say 6 divided by 6 is going to be 1, and minus the exponent. The 3 minus 1 is going to be 2. Here is minus, divide 18 divided by 6 is going to be 3. I'm going to say 1 minus 1 is going to be 0. That means I don't have to write down the x, because x to the exponent 0 equal 1. Divide the numbers. 6 divided by 6 is 1. 3 minus 1 is going to be 2. Divide the numbers minus the exponents. Negative 18 divided by 6 is going to be negative 3. And 1 minus 1 is going to be 0. That means x to the exponent 0, which is equal 1. So you don't have to write down, just write down the number. because 3 times 1 is going to be 3. That's it for this example. Now, what about this example? We have 3 terms. Let's work on this one. You have 3 terms. So if you have 4z cubed minus 8z squared plus 12z. Let's factor out the common factor between the numbers. This is 4 times 1. I can write down the 8 is 4 times 2. Carefully, you need to find the greatest common, not the smallest common, because you can pick 2, 2, and 2. You're right. 2 is a common between 4 and 8 and 12, but we need to find the greatest common, which is 4 times 1, 4 times 2, and 4 times 3. So the greatest common is 4. With the numbers is 4. So I'm going to say this is equal 4. Do I have common with variables? Yes, I'm going to take the variable with the smallest exponent, 3, 2, 1. That means the common is z to the exponent 1. Divide the numbers. 4 divided by 4 is going to be 1. You have to write down the 1. 3 minus 1 is going to be 2. So it's going to be z squared. Negative 8 divided by 4 is going to be negative 2. Here is the z. 2 minus 1 is going to be 1. Plus 12 divided by 4 is going to be 3. 1 minus 1 is going to be 0. I don't have to write down 0. That's the parentheses. So this is the greatest common factor. That's the left one. Next example, we're going to do exactly the same thing. So look to the common factor between these two terms. We have 3x, in parentheses, x minus 5, plus 2, and we have x minus 5. If you look at this example, you're going to say, okay, I'm going to distribute 3x on the parentheses. I'm going to distribute 2 on this parentheses. No, there is an easier way to solve this example. If you look to the parentheses, it's exactly the same thing. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to say, here's the common between this term and this one. Because here is the plus sign, that means this is the first term, and here is the second one. The common, it's exactly the same parentheses. So I'm going to say, here is the parentheses. I'm going to open another parenthesis. If I took this one as a common, the left from this side is a 3x. I'm going to write down 3x here. If I took this common here, the left from this side is plus 2. I'm going to write down plus 2 here. That's it. So the common with this example is the parentheses. And write down another parentheses, the leftover from this side, which is 3x, the leftover from this side, which is 2. It's mean, here is the 3, and here is the 2. That's it for this example. To find the common between this part and this one is the parentheses, and here is the leftover. So factor in special polynomial form. If you have difference between two squares, difference between two squares. So here is the rule. So if you have u squared minus b squared. So you see, u squared, that's why it says difference, always minus. If it's a plus, you can't use this one. Always minus, be careful. Always minus, that's why it's difference between two squares That's mean we have squared here and we have squared. So now it's u squared and v squared. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to open two parentheses, 1 plus, 1 minus. And it doesn't matter if you write down minus here and plus here, it's going to be right. The main thing, 1 plus, 1 minus. 1 u here, and the second u here. 1 v here, and the second v is going to be on the other side. If you FOIL this one, the result is going to be exactly the same thing. Let's check that. Because that's what it says. If you FOIL these two parentheses, you have to get exactly the same result. If you say u times u is going to be u squared. U times v is going to be negative uv. V times u is going to be positive vu. V times v is going to be negative v squared. If you look to these two terms in the middle, when you combine the like terms, u times v is the same thing v times u, because the multiplication is commutative property. That means if I flip this one, it's going to be uv, the same thing here. Cancel this one with this one, the result is going to be u squared minus v squared. It's exactly the same thing here. That's why we have to learn how to multiply two binomials, because always you're going to use it to check your solution. So the rule for the difference between two squares, open two parentheses, 1 plus 1 minus, 1 u here, 1 v here, 1 v here. This is just to check your solution if it's right or not. The second rule is called the perfect square. I'm going to give you examples for both. Square. Because they're going to ask you, use the perfect square. If you have exactly the same thing, u squared, this is as a rule, plus 2uv plus v squared. If you have exactly the same rule, the solution is going to be, I'm going to say, u plus v squared. This one is going to be the solution. If you have u squared minus 2uv plus v squared. You see, if you have minus now instead of plus, is going to be u minus v squared. So this is the second rule. Okay, so we have two rules, difference between two squares and perfect square. Let's do some examples. For the difference between two squares. If you have, here's an example, 4x squared minus 16. Let's do it x squared minus 16. If you have x squared minus 16, first of all, it's 2 squared. Why? Because this one is equal x squared minus, I can write down the 16 as 4 squared. 4 squared is 4 times 4 is going to be 16. So now we have difference between two squares. So what I'm going to do, open two parentheses, 1 plus 1 minus, 1x here, another x here, 1 4 here, another 4 is going to be. And always I'm going to check the parentheses with negative sign. Is that difference between two squares? This one I can write down as a 2 squared, so this is squared but the x is not squared. That's why I have to stop. Now the same example, but I'm going to change this one. Another example. If you have x squared, let's do it, x to the power 4 minus 16. I just changed the exponents. Now, is that difference between two squared? Yes, I can say this is yes, because I'm going to write down x squared minus 4 squared. This is just to show you. You can do it right away from this one. So I'm going to open two parentheses, so you don't have to do these steps. This is squared and this one squared. I'm going to say 1 plus 1 minus x squared. X to the power 4 is going to be x squared here and x squared here. And the 16 is going to be 1/4 here and another 4 here. Again, I told you always check the parentheses with negative sign. This one is also the difference between two squares. So I'm going to say, here's the first parentheses. For this one, I'm going to open another two parentheses. 1 plus 1 minus, because they ask you factor completely, you have to keep going. This is the first step, but I'm going to check the parentheses with negative sign. It's also the difference between two squares. So I'm going to say this one is going to be 1x here, 1x here. 4 is 2 times 2, 1, 2 here, and another 2 here. I'm going to check the parentheses with negative sign. This is not, it's a difference, but these are not squares. That's it. This is going to be my solution. Let's do one example from the website. So 4y squared minus 81. 4 y squared minus 81. This is difference between two squared. So I'm going to say, I'm going to open two parentheses. 1 plus 1 minus 4y squared. That means going to be 2y here and 2y here. 81, which is 9 times 9. So I'm going to put 1 9 here and 1 9 here. Always check the parentheses with negative sign. This is difference, but this one is not square. So that's it. This one is going to be my solution. That's it for this example. Let's check the next example. On other side, this is really important. So if you have 72 minus 50 z squared. So if you look to this one, they're telling you completely factor the difference of two squares. That means I have to use the difference between two squares. So if you look at this one, 72, there is no squares for 72. Always, I told you, the first step, when you see factor completely, check if there is common between these two terms. If you look here, there is common between the numbers, which is 2. So I'm going to take the 2 out. 72 divided by 2 is going to be 36. Minus 50 divided by 2 is going to be 25. And here is the 6. So now, if you look to this part, yes, there is a difference between two squares, because I factor out the GCF. So this one is going to be 2 I have to write down the GCF, the common, with my solution. Open two parentheses, 1 plus, 1 minus. The first one, I'm going to write down 6, because 36 is 6 times 6. And 25 is 5 times 5. But I'm going to write down 5 is Z here, and 5 on that. Check, is that difference between two squares? No, so that's it. This is going to be my solution. Do not forget the common factor between these two terms. That's it for the sixth one. Page. Perfect square, the second part. You can tell you factor out the perfect square. So here is an example. I'm going to use the perfect square. If you have y squared minus 18 or minus, let's do 8, y plus 16. We're going to factor out the perfect square. The rule says, let's down the slide. The rule says if you have u squared minus 2uv plus v squared, the solution is going to be u minus v squared. So let's look to this one. This is the u, which is y. So this is y squared minus. This is the v squared. Can I write down the 16 as a number squared? Yes, I can write down this is 4 squared. Now let's look to the middle term. Can I write down, because here's the 2, I'm going to write down 2. 2, this is the u, which is 4, and this is the v. V is the 4, and u is y. So can I write down this term as 2 times u, which is y, and here is the v, which is 4. Yes, why? Because when you multiply these two terms, negative 2 times 4 is going to be negative 8, and here's the y. That means the solution is going to be u, which is y, minus v, which is 4, and here's the square. So you see, I can write down this term as a 2, always number 2. This is the u, and this is the v. This is the u, and this is the v. When you multiply these, you have to multiply 2 times 4 is going to be 8, and here is the u. That means the solution is going to be y minus 4 squared. That's it. If you want to use the perfect square. Here's another example. If you have nine u squared plus 12 u v.
Excuse me, there's a question.
Yes.
Will we have these formulas when we take tests? That's
You can use the formula. You can use your notes.
okay.
Okay.
Okay, good.
That's why I'm writing down the formulas for you. Let's change these two variables. Let's do x and y. X squared, and here is xy, and here is 4y squared. They're going to ask you use the perfect square. So let's look at this one. I'm going to write down the 9 as a 3x squared. This is as the u. 3x squared is going to be 9x squared. I'm going to write down the v as 2y squared. So this is the V. 2y is the V, and 3x is the U. Can I write down the middle term as 2uv? Yes, here is the 2. This is the U. And this is the V. This is the U, and this is the V. So if you multiply these two together, 2 times 3, 6. 6 times 2 is 12xy. The result is going to be 12xy, which is the middle term. So I can write down the middle term as 2 times u times v. That means my solution is going to be u minus v squared, which is equal, here's the u, 3x, minus the v is 2y. Close the parentheses, and here's the. That's it for this example. So here's the rule. Now cube. That means u cubed plus v cubed. You're going to use exactly the same rule. Every time when you see u cubed, v cubed, you're going to say this is u plus v. That means the cubic root for the first term plus the cubic root for the second term. Then you're going to open parentheses. The first one squared plus is going to be minus the first one times the second one. So it's going to be u times v plus the second one squared. So here is the whole rule. You're just going to go ahead and use it. The first parentheses is going to be the cubic root of the first term plus the cubic root of the second term. You're going to open another parentheses, you're going to work here. The first one squared minus opposite the sign. The first one times the second one. So it's going to be u times v. Then the second one squared. This is the whole rule. If you have u cubed minus v cubed, so it's going to be the cubic root of the first term minus the cubic root of the second one. Then we're going to say here, the first one squared, opposite sign, the first one times the second one, plus the second one squared. So this is the whole rule. Example for that, I'm going to give you an example, which is exactly like the example here on open sign. You have two examples here. So they're telling you factor the sum or difference of cubes. That means you're going to use these two rules. Let's do this example. X cubed minus 343. Let's check that. This one, here's x cubed minus 343. This number is 7 cubed. 7 times 7 is going to be 49. 49 times 7 is going to be 343. That means the first one is a cubed minus the second one is a cube. So this is difference between two cubes. So what I'm going to do, here is the minus. I'm going to say the first term square the cubic root of the first term, which is x. The cubic root for the second one, which is 7. Then I'm going to open another parentheses using this. This one squared, opposite sign. Now I'm going to multiply the first one times the second one. So x times 7 is going to be 7x. plus the second one squared, so it's going to be 4, 9. That's it for this example. This is the difference between two cubes. Let's do another example. Write down these. So they're telling you this is a cube. This is not difference. This is sum between two cubes. This one is cube, but what about 512? Solution for this example. So 27 t cubed plus 512. So this one is going to be equal. The 27 I can write down as 3 cubed, and here is 2 cubed. So this one, this term is already cubed. Plus 512, I can write down 512 as 8 cubed. Because 8 times 8, 64. 64 times 8 is going to be 512. So this is sum between two cubes. So I'm going to open, this is equal. The first rule, I'm using this one. The cubic root for the first one is going to be 3t. Plus the cubic root for the second one is going to be 8. Then I'm going to work on this parentheses. The first one squared. That means it's going to be 9t squared. Opposite sign. The first one times the second one. So 3t times 8 is going to be 24t. Plus the second one squared. 8 squared is going to be 8 times 8. It's going to be 60. That's it for this. So here is the rule. The trinomial, that's meaning 3 terms. So if you have ax squared plus bx plus c, how are we gonna factor the trinomial? We're gonna open two parentheses. The first one here is going to be a number with the x plus a number, plus or minus. And the second one also is going to be a number with the x plus minus a number. So what I'm going to put here on these two numbers, the factor of a is going to be 1 here and the other one here. So this one is going to be factors of a, number a. It's going to be 1 here and the other one here. The factors of c is going to be 1 here and 1 here. So now this is just the general form. When we do example, I'm going to show you how you're going to check this is the right solution. Let's do a simple example. If we have x squared minus x minus 12. So the first thing, a is 1. That means the factors of 1 is 1, 1. So it's not going to change anything. The 12, the factors of 12 is a 3, 4. Or I can choose 2 times 6. If this one is not going to work, I'm going to go ahead and choose the other factor, which is 2 times 6. Because 2 times 6 is also factors of 12. If I can't use it, so that's the thing. If you can't use 2 and 6, you have only one option, is it 12 times 1. So keep in your mind, maybe you're going to use this factor or this one or this one. So you have to write down all factors on the side and start from the first one. Now I'm going to open two parentheses. Factors of A. Factors of A, one is going to be here and one is going to be here. Here is X and here is X. The factors of A is 1 times 1 because A is 1. So here is 1 and here is 1. It's not going to change anything. Factors of 12 is going to be 3 and 4. I'm going to start using this one. What about the sign? That's, you have to choose the sign. I'm going to start choosing this sign. I'm going to say, I'm going to put the plus here and minus here. So I'm going to check, is that the right solution? Now you're done, you did all the steps here, but you need to check the sign. Is that the right solution? What are you going to do? This is the important step because maybe you're going to change the sign. So I'm going to multiply the closest term here. 3 times x is going to be 3x. And I'm going to multiply these two terms. X times 4x is going to be negative 4x. The next step, you're going to add these together. 3x minus 4x is going to be negative x. Negative x is exactly like the term here in the middle. So when you get negative x, the middle term, exactly like this one, that means this is the right solution. If you get different term here, that means you have to change the sign. If you change the sign and you still have different term here, you have to go ahead and choose different factors. Okay? When you get exactly the same number here, which is the middle term, that means this is the right solution. If you got different one, that means you change the sign. If you still got different one, you have to change the factors. You're not going to choose these factors, you're going to go ahead and choose 2 and 6 and keep going. If not, you're going to go ahead and choose 12 and 1 until you have to choose the right factors to get the middle term. So like we are lucky, we choose a 3 and 4, we get negative 1, which is the right one. Let's do another example. If you have any questions, you can ask for this one. I'm going to choose this one. This one, yeah, this one is similar to this one. 7 x squared plus 59x minus 36. So again, we're going to start from using this rule. 7, I can write down 7. The factors of 7 is just 7 times 1. That's the only option from this side. From this side, I have how many options? I have 1 times 36. I have 2 times 18 is 36. I have 3 times 12 is 36. I have 4 times 9 is 36. And I have 6 times 6. You see how many factors I can use from this side? You're going to start from this one. If it's not going to work, go ahead this one and keep going until you get the solution. So let's start. I'm going to choose this one. 4 and 6. So I'm going to open 2 parentheses. I'm going to write down 7x here and 1x here. 36, I'm going to choose 4 and 9. Let's write down 4 here and 9 here. So now, the first thing, I'm going to choose plus and minus. A plus and minus here. Let's check. This is the right solution. If I multiply these together, it's going to be 4x. If I multiply these together, it's going to be negative 63x. 63x. Now, if we add these together, it's going to be negative 59x. Negative 59. I need to get positive 59x. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to change the sign. I'm going to change this one to negative and this one to positive. Now, let's check the solution. Negative 4 times x is going to be negative 4x. 7x times 9 is going to be 63x. So when you add these together, it's going to be positive 59x, which is the middle term. See this one? Exactly the middle term. That means this is the right solution. That means it's a 3 terms. We're going to use this method. I'm going to solve this example from UPaSign. So they're telling you factor trinomial. That means we have 3x squared minus 2x minus 16. So let's check that. The first thing, 3, the factor of 3 is just a 3 times 1. For 16 is 1 times 16. 2 times 8, 16, and 4 times 4. Always, when you like this option, keep it the last one. Do not start from this option. Start from this one and keep going to the next one. So now we're going to open 2 parentheses. If 3x here, I'm going to put x here. I'm going to use this option. I'm going to put 2 here and 8 here. And let's check that. It's going to work. If it's not, I'm going to switch these two. If it's not going to work, I'm going to go ahead to the other option. So now I put 2 here and 8 here. I'm going to say the sign, I'm going to put minus here and the plus here. So let's check that. Negative 2 times x is negative 2x. And 3 times 8 is going to be 24x. If we add these together, it's going to be 22x, which is not like the middle term. Check what I'm going to do. Before I'm going to the next option, I'm going to switch these two numbers. I'm going to say, okay, let's change this one to 8. And let's change this one to 2. 8 and 2. Let's multiply. Negative 8 times x is going to be negative 8x. And the 3x times 2 is going to be 6x. Add these together, is going to be negative 2x, which is the middle term. You see how it's worked? So the first thing, I'm going to write down this factor, exactly the same thing. I put 2 and 8. 2 here and 8 here. I saw that it doesn't work. Even if I change the sign, it's not going to work. What I'm going to do before I'm going to the next option, I'm going to switch these two numbers. I'm going to put 8 here and 2 here and check the sign. If it's work, I'm going to go ahead. This one is going to be the solution. If it's not working, I'm going to switch the sign. Sometimes you have to put negative here and negative here, positive here and positive here. It doesn't matter, you're going to put negative or positive. You have to, when you add these two numbers to check your solution, you have to get the middle term. Okay, so that's it for this method, for this example. The last part you need to learn is factoring by grouping. Let's do factoring by grouping. So they're gonna tell you, you see how many questions you have? They're gonna tell you factor by grouping. But how are you going to know I'm going to use this method? Here's an example. This example from the workbook, you have 4x cubed or x cubed plus x squared minus 28x minus 7. If you go back to the previous method, it says factor trinomial. That means 3 terms. I'm going to use factoring by grouping. Always you're going to use this method if you have 1, 2, 3, 4. So if you have 4 terms, and always check, do you have common between this term and this one and this one and this one? If you check, there is no common. Then I'm going to go to the next step. How many terms? 1, 2, 3, 4. That's mean I'm going to use factoring by grouping. How what does that mean, factoring by grouping? You're going to group, I'm going to do another step. So you're not going to get confused. Plus x squared minus 28x minus 7. Grouping, that's mean you're going to group the first 2 terms and group the last 2 terms. See, I didn't do anything. 4 terms, I'm going to group the first 2 terms. I'm going to group the last 2 terms. Check what I'm going to do. I'm going to hide this group. I'm going just to look for this group. Do you have common between 4x cubed and x cubed? Yes, the common is x squared. The common between 4x cubed and x squared is x squared. Open parentheses, write down the leftover between these 2 parentheses. 4 divided by 4 is going to be 1. 3 minus 2 is going to be just x plus 1 divided by 1 is going to be 1. 2 minus 2 is going to be 0. That means there is no x here. I'm done from the first group. Take this one and hide the first group. We have to look to the second group. Do you have common between negative? Be careful. Negative 28x and negative 7. Yes, a common is negative 7. Negative sign, that means it's a common. 28, it's 4 times 7, 7, so the common is negative 7. I'm going to open parentheses. Negative 28 divided by negative 7 is going to be 4. We did something wrong here? Yes, we forgot the 4. Negative 7, 4x. Negative 7 divided by negative 7 is going to be positive 1. Here, 4 divided by 1 is going to be 4. So 4x. So now, how are you going to know this is the right step? You have to get exactly the same parentheses. If I got exactly the same parentheses, that means this is the right solution. I'm going to write down one of these parentheses here, 4x plus 1. And on the other side, this one exists here, so the leftover is just x squared. This parentheses exists here, so the left on this side is minus 7. That's it for this example. This is how you're gonna know. This is acting by grouping. You have 4 terms. Group the first 2 terms and the last 2 terms. Then find the common between the first 2 terms, and here is the leftover. And find the common between the second 2 terms, and here is the leftover. Check these 2 leftover from here and here. They are the same. Write down one of these, and the left here is x squared minus 7. That's it for this example. Let's do another example. That's it. If you have 7x cubed plus x cubed squared minus 21x minus 3. So if you look how I'm going to use this method, I have 4 terms, 1, 2, 3, 4. Then I'm going to group the first 2 terms and group the last 2 terms. If you want to write down another step, it's fine. Hide the first group, look to the hide the second one, look to the first one. What's the common between 7x cubed and x squared? The common is x squared. Open parentheses. 7 divided by 1 is 7. 3 minus 2 is going to be 1. 2 minus 2 is going to be 1. 0, and the left is going to be 1. Because 1 divided by 1 is going to be 1. 2 minus 2 is going to be 0. So we're done on this one. Let's work on the second group. What's the common between negative 21x and negative 3? The common is negative 3. For parentheses, negative 21 divided by negative 3 is going to be 7. There's the x. Negative 3 divided by negative 3 is going to be 1. Now, this is the right solution. Why? Because I got exactly the same parentheses. So write down these. 7x plus 1. And the left is going to be x squared minus 3. That's it for this example. How are you going to check this is the right solution? Go ahead and FOIL these 2 binomial. You have to go back to the same one. So if you FOIL these 2 parentheses, you're going to go back to the questions. That's it.